Well, good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Glenn Taylor. Today marks the 118th anniversary of the formation of the Australian Army. We welcome current serving Army members that are joining us today, as well as those who have served before, and we thank them for their service to the nation. We warmly welcome the family of Private Arthur William Moy, whose story will be told shortly by Major Taylor, who is Private Moy's great nephew-in-law. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. Australia's Federation Guard is a tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catapult party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you're able, I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Catapult party, attention! Catapult party, present arms!
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are young and free. We've got
If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, as best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Arthur William Moy. Arthur Moy was born in 1894 in Rappunya, north of Stawell in Victoria. Arthur's mother Mary was born in England. His father R came from China, and before Arthur's birth, the couple lived in Ballarat, where R worked as an interpreter in the jail. Arthur was the eldest of 5 children, attended the local state school, and later worked as a hospital warder. The family was heavily involved in the local Salvation Army. Arthur applied to join the Australian Imperial Force on the 5th of February 1916. Just over 2 weeks later, he married his sweetheart, Jane Story. The couple did not have long together. Just 6 days after their marriage, Arthur formally enlisted into the army. His brother Charlie also enlisted, and the 2 brothers served as bandsmen in the 39th Battalion throughout the war. A 3rd brother, John, known as Jack, also enlisted, serving in the 46th Battalion. Arthur embarked from Melbourne in late May 1916 and arrived in England in July, where he spent 4 months training. After transferring to France in November, he moved into the trenches of the Western Front for the first time on the 9th of December near Armentières in northern France. He spent the terrible cold winter of 1916-17 enduring hardships of trench warfare, exposed not only to the cold and rain and snow, but German raids and intermittent bombardments from high explosive artillery, mortar and gas shells. In mid-1917, Arthur and the 39th Battalion moved north to participate in the Battle of Messines. This would be their first major battle of the war. The purpose of this operation was to capture the White Sheet Messines Ridge near Ypres in Belgium. In this major engagement, the 3rd Australian Division, in conjunction with British and New Zealand troops, was to form the main attacking force. The 4th Division was also used to reinforce the operation. The use of these two Australian divisions meant that all three of the Moy brothers would fight in the one battle. After a week-long artillery bombardment of the German lines at 3:10 a.m. on the morning of the 7th of June, Allied forces detonated nearly 500,000 kilograms of explosives placed in a series of mines dug deep under the German lines. The mines had taken Australian, Canadian, British and New Zealand miners 2 years to dig, but their effect was decisive. The explosions obliterated the German front line positions and demoralised the remaining defenders. By 5:30 a.m, Australian, British and New Zealand troops had reached their objective and occupied the heights. It was one of the most complete local successes yet seen in the war, but it came at a heavy price. During the battle, Australia lost 6,800 casualties from Arthur's 3rd Division. At some point during the first day of the battle, either as he moved into position or fighting later in the day, Arthur received a severe gunshot or shrapnel wound to the face. He was evacuated unconscious from the field and transferred to a casualty clearing station. He did not recover from his injuries and died a few hours later. He was 23 years old. His brothers Charlie and Jack both survived the war, but on the day that Arthur died, Charlie received a gunshot wound to his thigh. While recovering in hospital in England, he wrote to the Australian Red Cross Society pleading for information about the fate of his brother. Arthur is buried in the Bayeux Communal Cemetery Extension in France, where nearly 4,500 Commonwealth soldiers of the First World War now lie. His grieving widow left a simple epitaph on his grave: ever remembered. Private Arthur Moy is listed on the Roll of Honour to my right amongst almost 60,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Arthur William Moy, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and a hope for a better world.
Whole party, shoulder, arms.
I invite you to please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Whole party, present, arms.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.